The desert wind howled across the red sand dunes of Kepler 442b as Dr. Lisa Martinez checked her equipment readings one final time. The small research station hummed quietly in the distance, its solar panels catching the pale light of the alien sun. She had been alone on this planet for 6 months, studying the strange plant life that somehow thrived in the harsh conditions. The work was important but lonely, especially with the war raging across the galaxy. Lisa wiped sweat from her forehead and turned to head back to the station when something caught her eye. A dark shape lay crumpled behind a large boulder about 50 meters away. At first she thought it might be debris from one of the many space battles that had taken place in this system. But as she moved closer, her heart began to race. The shape was moving slightly, rising and falling in a rhythm she recognized all too well. It was breathing. Lisa approached carefully, her hand moving instinctively to the emergency beacon on her belt. Federation protocol was clear about encounters with unknown life forms. Report immediately and wait for military backup. But as she drew closer, she could see that whatever this was, it was badly injured and losing a lot of blood. The creature was unlike anything in her xenobiology textbooks. It stood nearly 7 feet tall even while lying down, with lean but powerful muscles visible beneath torn clothing. Its skin had a pale blue tint and was covered in intricate tattoo-like markings that seemed to shift slightly in the light. Most striking were the 4 arms, each ending in hands with 3 long fingers. The face was humanoid but angular, with large dark eyes that were currently closed in unconsciousness. Lisa's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the distinctive armor fragments scattered around the body. This was a Zephyrian warrior, one of the alien soldiers that had been fighting humans for 3 long years. According to everything she had been told, these beings were ruthless killers who showed no mercy to human prisoners. But looking at the wounded figure before her, all Lisa could see was a living creature in desperate need of medical attention. Dark green blood pooled beneath several deep wounds across the torso and arms. The breathing was shallow and rapid, classic signs of blood loss and shock. Without immediate treatment, this being would die within the hour. Lisa's training as a doctor kicked in before her fear could stop her. She activated her portable medical scanner and ran it over the prone form. The readings were alarming but not hopeless. The alien physiology was different from human, but similar enough that her emergency medical supplies might work. She ran back to her research station and grabbed her medical kit along with a small anti-grav stretcher. The wounded Zephyrian was heavier than she expected, but the stretcher's systems compensated as she carefully moved the unconscious form into her laboratory. Under the bright lights of the medical bay, Lisa could see the extent of the injuries more clearly. 3 deep gashes across the chest looked like they came from some kind of energy weapon. Burns on the arms suggested an explosion or fire. Most concerning was a piece of metal shrapnel embedded near what she guessed was the heart region. Lisa had never performed surgery on an alien before, but the basic principles of trauma medicine were universal: stop the bleeding, stabilize vital signs, and remove any foreign objects threatening major organs. She worked quickly but carefully, using her scanners to guide her movements as she cleaned and closed the wounds. The most delicate part was removing the shrapnel. Lisa held her breath as she used microforceps to extract the twisted piece of metal. Dark green blood flowed for a moment before the alien's advanced healing system seemed to activate, slowing the bleeding dramatically. As she applied the final bandages, the Zephyrian's large eyes suddenly snapped open. Lisa found herself staring into deep purple irises that held an intelligence she had not expected. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The alien tried to sit up quickly but winced in pain and fell back onto the medical table. Its 4 hands moved to the bandages on its chest, examining Lisa's work with what seemed like surprise. When it spoke, the words came out in a musical language full of clicking and flowing sounds that meant nothing to Lisa. She slowly reached for her translation device, moving carefully to avoid startling her patient. The small device had been programmed, with basic Zephyrian military phrases captured during previous battles. It was not perfect, but it might allow basic communication. "Can you understand me now?" Lisa asked, speaking slowly into the device. The alien's eyes widened as the translated words came out in its own language. It responded with a series of rapid clicks and tones. The translation device worked for a moment before displaying the human equivalent. Why did you not kill me? Lisa blinked in surprise. You were hurt. You needed help. The Zephyrian stared at her for a long time as if trying to understand a difficult concept. You are human. I am Zephyrian. We are enemies. You are a patient, Lisa replied simply. I am a doctor. That is what matters right now. The alien attempted to sit up again, this time moving more slowly. I am called Kethvar. I was left for dead by my own squadron when I could not keep up after the battle. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Your own people left you to die? Kethvar's expression grew bitter. It is our way. The weak do not deserve to survive. I have brought shame to my family name by falling in combat. That's horrible, Lisa said without thinking. No one deserves to be abandoned when they are hurt. The Zephyrian warrior looked at her with genuine confusion. But I am your enemy. Your people and mine have killed thousands of each other. Why? Do you care if I live or die? Lisa paused, trying to find the right words. Because you are alive. Because you can think and feel pain and fear just like I can. Because leaving someone to die when you have the power to save them is wrong. No matter who they are. Kethvar was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, he spoke again. Your name, human doctor? Lisa Martinez. Lisa Martinez, he repeated carefully. You have given me a debt I do not know how to repay. This is not how war is supposed to work. Lisa checked his bandages and vital signs on her scanner. The readings were improving steadily. Maybe that is the problem. Maybe war is not supposed to work at all. Outside the research station, the alien sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple. Lisa realized that in saving this wounded warrior's life, she might have just changed everything. But as she looked into Kethvar's intelligent eyes, she knew she had made the right choice. The question now was what would happen when the rest of the galaxy found out. 3 days passed since Lisa had found Kethvar bleeding in the desert. The Zephyrian warrior was healing faster than she had expected, though he still moved carefully to avoid reopening his wounds. Lisa had set up a makeshift bed in her laboratory's storage room, hidden from the main windows in case any Federation patrols decided to check on her research station. Each morning, Lisa would check Kethvar's injuries and change his bandages. The alien's healing abilities were remarkable, far superior to human recovery rates. What should have taken weeks was happening in days. But more interesting to Lisa was how Kethvar watched everything she did with intense curiosity. Your healing methods are strange, Kethvar said through the translation device as Lisa applied fresh bandages to his chest. Zephyrian medicine focuses on speed. We use pain enhancers to force the body to heal faster. Lisa paused in her work. Pain enhancers? That sounds awful. Pain makes us stronger. It teaches discipline and builds character. Kethvar flexed one of his forearms experimentally. But your gentle methods seem to work just as well, perhaps better. Pain is not something to seek out, Lisa replied. It is a warning that something is wrong. My job is to reduce suffering, not increase it. Kethvar tilted his head. A gesture Lisa was learning meant he was thinking hard about something. This concept of reducing suffering is difficult for me to understand. In Zephyrian culture, suffering builds strength. The weak are eliminated, so the strong can thrive. Lisa finished with the bandages and sat down across from her unusual patient. Over the past few days, she had begun to see Kethvar not as the terrifying enemy soldier she had been taught to fear, but as an intelligent being with his own thoughts and beliefs. His questions about human culture were genuinely curious, not hostile. Tell me about your world, Lisa said. What is it like when you are not fighting wars? Kethvar's expression softened slightly. Zephyr Prime is a world of great mountains and deep valleys. The cities are built into the cliff faces, connected by bridges that span enormous chasms. The young are trained from birth in the warrior arts, learning to climb and fight before they can properly walk. That sounds beautiful but harsh, Lisa observed. It is both. Beauty and hardship shape strong people. But Kethvar hesitated. There are also the song gardens. Song gardens? For the first time since she had found him, Kethvar almost smiled. Sacred places where we grow plants that make music when the wind blows through them. Warriors go there to find peace after battle. Even the strongest fighter needs moments of quiet. Lisa was surprised. Everything the Federation had told her about Zephyrians painted them as mindless killers with no appreciation for beauty or art. Your people create music? Of course. How else would we remember our history and teach our children? The greatest warriors are also poets and singers. It is how we pass down the stories of heroes and the lessons of the past. Lisa thought about her own world, Earth, with its cities full of art galleries and concert halls. Humans love music too, and art and stories and poetry. We are probably more alike than either of our governments wants us to believe. Kethvar nodded slowly. I have been taught that humans are cowards who hide behind machines and technology instead of facing their enemies with honor. But you did not hide from me when I was helpless. You could have easily killed me or called for your soldiers, but instead you chose to heal me. What you call hiding behind technology, we call using tools to solve problems. Humans are not naturally as strong or fast as many other species, so we had to become clever to survive. Lisa gestured around her laboratory. All of this equipment helps me understand how life works on different worlds. Knowledge is its own kind of strength. I begin to see that, Kethvar admitted. Your healing knowledge saved my life when my own strength failed me. Perhaps there is honor in learning as well as fighting. Over the following days, their conversations grew longer and more personal. Lisa learned that Kethvar had been a decorated war singer before the conflict with humanity began. He had composed battle hymns and led his troops in ceremonial dances before combat. The idea of a warrior who was also an artist fascinated Lisa. In return, she told him about her own journey from medical school on Earth to xenobiology research on distant worlds. She explained how humans had always been explorers, driven by curiosity to discover what lay beyond the next hill or the next star system. We fight because we were told you wanted to destroy our way of life, Kethvar said, one evening as Lisa prepared his dinner. Human food did not agree with Zephyrian digestion, but she had been able to synthesize nutrients that kept him healthy. And we fight because we were told you wanted to conquer human colonies and enslave our people, Lisa replied. I am starting to think neither of those things is true. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. When this war began, I was told that humans had attacked a Zephyrian mining operation without warning, killing thousands of innocent workers. Is this what your people were told happened? Lisa frowned. No. According to Federation reports, Zephyrian warships attacked a human research station that was studying mineral deposits. The researchers were all killed before they could evacuate. They stared at each other as the implications sank in. Someone had lied, possibly to both sides. If neither of our people started this war the way we were told, Kethvar said slowly, then who did? And why? Lisa did not have an answer, but she was beginning to suspect that the truth was far more complicated than either of them had been led to believe. As she watched Kethvar struggle with the possibility that everything he had been taught about the war might be false, she realized she was having the same doubts about her own government's version of events. Tomorrow I need to go outside to check my research equipment, Lisa said. Federation patrols sometimes fly over this area. You will need to stay hidden inside. Kethvar nodded. I understand. But Lisa Martinez, I want you to know that when I am healed enough to leave this place, I will not forget what you have done for me. You have shown me that honor can exist between enemies. As Lisa settled down for sleep in her own quarters that night, she wondered what would happen when Kethvar was fully recovered. Would he return to his own people and resume fighting against humans? Would she be able to continue her research knowing that her patient might one day face her fellow humans in battle again? But more troubling was the growing certainty that this war was built on lies and that warriors like Kethvar and soldiers like the Federation troops she occasionally met were all victims of someone else's agenda. The question was whether anyone would believe them if they tried to tell the truth. The Federation patrol ship descended from the morning sky like a metal bird of prey. its engines kicking up clouds of red dust as it settled near Lisa's research station. She watched through her window as 3 figures in military uniforms stepped out of the craft, their weapons clearly visible at their sides. "Stay hidden and do not make any noise," Lisa whispered to Kethvar, who was already moving quietly toward the concealed storage room where he had been hiding for the past week. Lisa took a deep breath and walked outside to greet the patrol. The IE leader was a tall man with graying hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. The insignia on his uniform identified him as Captain Jake Morrison, someone Lisa had heard about but never met. The other 2 soldiers were younger, probably recent graduates from the military academy. "Dr. Martinez," Captain Morrison said with a polite nod. "Sorry to drop in unannounced, but we are conducting routine security checks on all civilian installations in this sector. How has your research been going?" "Fine, thank you, Captain," Lisa replied, hoping her voice sounded normal. "I have been cataloging the desert plant species and studying their adaptation methods. Nothing very exciting, I am afraid." Morrison's scanner beeped as he swept it across the area around the research station. "Any unusual readings or activity in the past few weeks? We have had reports of Zephyrian ships in nearby systems." Lisa's heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Nothing unusual. Just the normal background radiation and geological activity. Would you like to see my research logs?" "That would be helpful," Morrison said, but his scanner beeped. Again, more insistently this time. He frowned and adjusted the settings. "Strange. I am picking up trace amounts of Zephyrian biosignatures, very faint but definitely present." One of the younger soldiers stepped forward. "Sir, should we search the facility?" Lisa felt panic rising in her chest. If they found Kethvar, he would be captured or killed, and she would probably face court-martial for harboring an enemy. But before she could think of an excuse, Morrison's scanner let out a sharp alarm. "The readings are coming from inside the station," Morrison said, his hand moving to his weapon. "Dr. Martinez, I need you to step aside while we investigate." "Captain, please," Lisa began, but Morrison was already moving toward the station entrance, with his soldiers behind him. Lisa knew she had no choice. She could not let them find Kethvar unprepared. "Wait," she called out. "There is something you need to know." Morrison stopped and turned back to her, his expression serious. "What is it, Doctor?" Lisa took a deep breath. "There is a wounded Zephyrian warrior inside my station. I found him dying in the desert a week ago, and I have been treating his injuries." The 2 young soldiers immediately raised their weapons, but Morrison held up a hand to stop them. His eyes never left Lisa's face. "You have been harboring an enemy combatant for a week without reporting it?" "He was dying," Lisa said simply. "I am a doctor. I could not just let him die." Morrison's expression hardened. "Dr. Martinez, do you have any idea how many good soldiers have died fighting these aliens? How many human colonies they have destroyed?" "I know what I have been told," Lisa replied. "But I also know that the being inside my station is not the monster I expected. He is intelligent, thoughtful, and capable of honor and compassion." "Compassion?" Morrison laughed bitterly. "These creatures show no mercy to human prisoners. They leave their own wounded to die. What compassion are you talking about?" "The compassion he showed when he could have escaped days ago, but chose to stay and talk with me instead. The compassion he showed when he warned me about your patrol approaching this morning so I could decide what to do." Lisa looked directly into Morrison's eyes. "Captain, I think we have all been lied to about this war." Before Morrison could respond, Kethvar stepped out of the research station. The Zephyrian warrior moved slowly, his hands clearly visible and empty of weapons. The 2 soldiers immediately trained their guns on him, but he showed no fear. "I am Kethvar of the 3rd Battle Wing," he said through Lisa's translation device. "I surrender myself to prevent harm from coming to the healer, who saved my life." Morrison stared at the alien warrior, his weapon drawn but not yet aimed. "You speak our language?" "Through the translation device, yes. I have learned much about humans in the past week. You are not what my people claimed you were." "And what did your people claim we were?" Morrison asked. curiosity overcoming his military training. Cowards, killers of innocence, destroyers of worlds who show no honor in battle. Kethvar gestured toward Lisa, but this human risked her own safety to heal an enemy. She asked nothing in return. This is not the behavior of a coward or a killer. Morrison lowered his weapon slightly. Why did your squadron leave you behind? Because I was wounded and could not keep up. In Zephyrian military doctrine, the weak are abandoned so they do not slow down the strong. I was prepared to die with honor in the desert. Kethvar looked at Lisa. Instead, I learned that sometimes greater honor comes from preserving life, rather than ending it. One of the young soldiers stepped forward. Sir, regulations are clear. We should take the prisoner and arrest Dr. Martinez for harboring an enemy. Morrison held up his hand again. Stand down, Lieutenant. He studied Kethvar carefully. You said you learned much about humans. What exactly did you learn? That the stories we were told about the beginning of this war do not match the stories Lisa Martinez was told. That humans create art and music and poetry just as Zephyrians do. That healing and knowledge are valued above conquest. Kethvar paused. That perhaps we are fighting each other for reasons that have nothing to do with the truth. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Lisa could see the internal struggle on his face as years of military training warred with what he was hearing and seeing. Captain, Lisa said quietly, what if I told you that Kethvar believes his people were told that humans started this war by attacking a peaceful mining operation, and that we were told Zephyrians started it by attacking a research station? Morrison's eyes widened. That would mean someone has been lying to both sides. That is exactly what it means, Lisa replied. The question is who benefits from this war continuing? Kethvar stepped closer, moving slowly to avoid alarming the soldiers. Captain Morrison, I offer you my word as a warrior that I mean no harm to you or your people. I wish only to understand why we are fighting and how it might be stopped. Morrison stared at the alien warrior for a long time. Finally, he holstered his weapon. This is way above my pay grade, he muttered. But if what you are both suggesting is true, then we have a much bigger problem than one wounded Zephyrian. Lisa felt relief flood through her. What do we do now? Morrison looked between Lisa and Kethvar, then at his two confused soldiers. Now we figure out who has been playing both our species for fools. And we better do it fast, because if High Command finds out I did not arrest both of you, we are all going to be in serious trouble. The desert wind picked up, swirling dust around the small group as they stood on the threshold of a discovery that could change everything. Lisa realized that saving one wounded warrior might have just saved both their civilizations from a war built on lies. The Zephyrian attack ships appeared on the horizon like deadly silver dots, their engines screaming as they dove toward the research station. Captain Morrison's scanner erupted in warning signals as he counted at least 6 enemy fighters approaching. Fast. Everyone inside now, Morrison shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm and pulling her toward the station. His 2 soldiers, Lieutenant Paul Davis and Sergeant Kelly Brooks, followed close behind with weapons ready. Kethvar stood frozen for a moment, staring at the approaching ships. Those are 3rd Battle Wing markings, he said through the translation. Device. My former squadron. Well, they are not here for a friendly reunion, Morrison said grimly. Move. They rushed into the research station just as the first energy blasts struck the ground outside, sending up showers of superheated sand and rock. The building's emergency shields activated automatically, but Lisa knew they would not hold for long against sustained military-grade weapons. Why are they attacking? Lisa asked as she ducked behind her laboratory table. Surely they can see this is a civilian research facility. Kethvar's expression was grim. They tracked me here. Either they came to rescue me or to eliminate me, before I could reveal military secrets to humans. Given that my people left me for dead, I suspect it is the latter. Morrison was already coordinating with his ship's computer system. My patrol craft has decent shields and weapons, but we are outnumbered 3-1. We need to get to it and evacuate immediately. The ship is 50 meters from the station, Sergeant Brooks observed, looking out the window at the Federation. Patrol craft. That might as well be 50 kilometers with those fighters strafing the area. Another volley of energy fire struck the research station, causing the lights to flicker. Lisa's equipment sparked, and several of her specimen containers shattered from the vibration. "There is another option," Kethvar said quietly. "I could surrender myself to them. That might stop the attack." "Absolutely not," Lisa said firmly. "After everything we have learned, I will not let you sacrifice yourself." Morrison looked at the Zephyrian warrior with new respect. "You would really give yourself up to save us? It is the honorable thing to do. You have shown me mercy when you could have taken me prisoner. I will not repay that by allowing you to die." Lieutenant Davis, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. "Sir, I have an idea. What if we do not try to escape? What if we fight back?" Morrison stared at the young officer. "Fight back?" "Lieutenant, in case you have not noticed, we are severely outgunned." "Not if we have help," Davis said, pointing at Kethvar. "He knows their tactics, their ship capabilities, maybe even how to jam their communications. With inside information, we might have a chance." Kethvar tilted his head thoughtfully. "Your suggestion has merit. I know the commander of that squadron, War Leader Thexmal. He is aggressive but predictable. If I could get access to your communication systems, I might be able to disrupt their coordination." Morrison was clearly torn between military protocol and practical necessity. Another blast rocked the station, and he made his decision. "Do it. What do you need?" Lisa led them to her communication array, normally used for sending research data, back to Federation headquarters. Kethvar studied the controls for a moment, then began making adjustments with surprising skill. "Zephyrian ships use quantum-linked communication," he explained as he worked. "If I can match the frequency and send an overload pulse, it will temporarily blind their sensors and jam their coordination signals." "How temporarily?" Sergeant Brooks asked as she checked her weapon charge. "Perhaps 5 minutes. Long enough for a tactical advantage, but not long enough for a full evacuation." Morrison nodded grimly. "Then we make those 5 minutes count. Dr. Martinez, can you get to my ship's medical bay and prepare for casualties? We are going to need all the help we can get." Lisa was about to protest that she was not a military medic when another blast nearly knocked her off her feet. She grabbed her emergency medical kit and nodded. "I understand." Kethvar finished his adjustments and looked up. "Ready. When I activate this, their ships will be confused but not helpless. You will have a brief window to reach your patrol craft and mount a defense." "What about you?" Morrison asked. "I will be fighting alongside you," Kethvar replied simply. "These warriors came to kill me and everyone who helped me. That makes this personal." Morrison stared at the alien warrior. "You realize that if you fight against your own people, there will be no going back. You will be branded a traitor forever." Kethvar's expression was resolute. "I have already chosen my side. It is the side that values life over death, healing over harming, truth over lies. If that makes me a traitor to the Zephyrian Empire, then so be it." The communication system suddenly went silent as Kethvar activated his jamming signal. Through the windows, they could see the enemy fighters wavering in their formations, clearly struggling with disrupted communications and sensors. "Go now!" Morrison shouted. They burst out of the research station in a coordinated rush. Lieutenant Davis and Sergeant Brooks provided covering fire while Morrison and Lisa ran for the patrol ship. Kethvar moved with surprising speed despite his recent injuries, his forearms allowing him to fire 2 energy weapons simultaneously while maintaining his balance. The Zephyrian fighters were already beginning to adapt to the jamming, but the confusion bought them precious seconds. Lisa reached Morrison's ship first and immediately headed for the medical bay, while the others established defensive positions. What happened next amazed everyone, especially Morrison. Kethvar did not just know Zephyrian tactics, he could predict them. He called out warnings seconds before enemy ships changed course, identified weak points in their attack formations, and even managed to jam specific ships at crucial moments. "Fighter, coming in low on the left," Kethvar shouted, and Davis was ready with a perfect shot that sent the enemy craft spinning away with damaged engines. "Thexmal is preparing a bombing run on the research station," Kethvar warned. "He will come from the north at maximum speed." Morrison adjusted his ship's defensive systems just in time to intercept the attack, saving Lisa's laboratory from complete destruction. But the most shocking moment came when Kethvar opened a communication channel to his former squadron leader. Speaking in rapid Zephyrian, he delivered what sounded like a formal challenge. The enemy ships actually paused their attack. "What did you tell them?" Morrison asked. "I challenged Thexmol to single combat. By Zephyrian law, he must either accept or withdraw his forces in shame." Through the communication system, they heard an angry response in the Zephyrian language. The translation device rendered it as, "You are already dead, traitor. We do not fight the dishonored." The attack resumed with renewed fury, but something had changed. The enemy pilots seemed less coordinated, less sure of themselves. Several began breaking off from attack runs early, as if reluctant to continue fighting. "They are having doubts," Kethvar observed. "Word of my challenge will spread through their ranks. Some will question why they are attacking a lone warrior who fought with honor." The battle continued for another hour, but gradually the Zephyrian ships began withdrawing. Several had taken damage from the unexpectedly effective defense, and their jamming was still causing communication problems. As the last enemy fighter disappeared over the horizon, Morrison stood among the debris of what had been a peaceful research station. Lisa emerged from the medical bay, having treated minor injuries for Davis and Brooks. "Well," Morrison said, looking at Kethvar with undisguised admiration, "I guess that settles the question of whose side you are on." Kethvar examined a scorch mark on his arm from an energy blast. "I fought to protect those who showed me kindness. This is what honor truly means." Lisa checked his wound and began applying a fresh bandage. "What happens now? Your own people will never accept you back. And my superiors are going to want explanations for why I allowed an enemy warrior to help defend a Federation facility," Morrison added. "This is going to be very hard to explain in my report." Kethvar looked out at the desert where he had nearly died just weeks before. "Then perhaps it is time to stop following orders from people who care more about fighting than about truth." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Martinez, you said you think this whole war is based on lies. After what just happened, I am starting to believe you might be right." As they stood together in the aftermath of the battle, an unlikely alliance was forming. A human doctor, a Federation captain, and a Zephyrian warrior who had all begun to question everything they had been taught about their enemies. None of them knew what would come next, but they all understood that there was no going back to the way things were before. The underground caverns of Asteroid Base Sanctuary looked nothing like the polished military facilities Lisa was used to. Rough stone walls were lined with salvaged equipment from dozens of different ships and installations. The air recycling systems hummed constantly, and the artificial gravity felt slightly off, making every step require conscious effort. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at the research station. Captain Morrison had filed a report claiming the facility was destroyed in a random Zephyrian raid, with all personnel evacuated safely. He made no mention of Kethvar or the unusual alliance that had formed. But within days, both Federation, High Command, and the Zephyrian War Council had marked all of them as persons of interest. "They know we are lying about something," Morrison explained, as he led Lisa and Kethvar through the winding corridors. "My ship's sensor logs do not match my report, and someone in intelligence noticed the discrepancies. They were no longer alone in their questioning of the war. Lieutenant Amy Carter had contacted Morrison through encrypted channels, claiming to represent a network of Federation personnel who had begun to doubt the official narrative. She had arranged this meeting at the hidden asteroid base, but Lisa was nervous about who else might be waiting for them. The main chamber opened up into a vast natural cavern that had been converted into a command center. Computer terminals and communication arrays were scattered around the space, tended by people in both Federation uniforms and civilian clothes. But what shocked Lisa most was seeing several figures in modified Zephyrian armor working alongside the humans. "Welcome to the real resistance," Amy Carter said, stepping forward to greet them. She was younger than Lisa had expected, with short brown hair and intelligent green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "I know this is overwhelming, but we have been building this network for months. A tall Zephyrian warrior approached. Their group, moving with the fluid grace Lisa had learned to associate with their species. Unlike Kethvar's military bearing, this one carried himself more like an artist or scholar. "I am Vexthul, songkeeper of the Fifth Colony," he said through a translation device similar to the one Lisa used with Kethvar. "I was a poet before this war began. Now I fight with words instead of weapons." Kethvar stepped forward and performed what Lisa recognized as a formal greeting between Zephyrian warriors. "I am Kethvar, formerly of the Third Battle Wing. I greet you as one who has chosen truth over loyalty." "The greeting is returned," Vexthul replied. "Your actions at the Human Research Facility have become legend among those who question this war. Many young warriors speak your name with respect." Amy Carter gestured for them to follow her to a quieter area of the cavern. "We need to bring you up to speed on what we have discovered. The information you provided about conflicting stories regarding how the war started was the missing piece we needed." She activated a holographic display that showed star charts and battle records from both sides of the conflict. "Our investigation has revealed that neither Federation nor Zephyrian forces started the attacks that began this war. The evidence points to a third party that manipulated both governments into believing the other side struck first." Morrison studied the display carefully. "Who and why?" "That is where it gets complicated," Amy replied. "We have identified several key figures in both military hierarchies who have been deliberately prolonging the conflict. General Henry Brooks of the Federation and War Master Threxcole of the Zephyrian Empire have been secretly coordinating their strategies to maintain a profitable stalemate." Lisa felt sick. "You mean they have been deliberately sending people to die for profit?" Vexthul's expression grew dark. "War Master Threxcole was once my mentor. He taught me that honor in battle was the highest virtue. To learn that he has been orchestrating meaningless deaths for personal gain is a betrayal beyond words. The arms manufacturers on both sides have been making enormous profits," Amy continued. "New weapons, ships, defense systems, medical supplies, everything needed to keep a war going. Brooks and Threxcole have been ensuring that neither side gains a decisive advantage." Kethvar was studying the battle records with growing anger. "These attack patterns make no sense from a strategic perspective. We have been fighting battles designed to create casualties, not victory. Which brings us to why we brought you here," Amy said. "We have been gathering evidence for months, but we need proof that will convince people on both sides. Something dramatic enough to break through years of propaganda and hatred." Morrison crossed his arms. "What kind of proof?" A new voice answered from behind them. "The kind that requires people willing to risk everything." They turned to see an older woman in Federation scientist robes approaching. Lisa recognized her immediately from academic journals she had read. "Dr. Susan Hayes," the woman introduced herself. "Former head of xenobiology at the Federation Science Institute. I was removed from my position 6 months ago for asking too many questions about the war." "What kind of questions?" Lisa asked. Susan activated another holographic display, this one showing complex genetic charts and molecular diagrams. "I was studying DNA samples from various battlefields when I discovered something remarkable. Humans and Zephyrians share significant genetic markers. Not just similar evolution, but actual common ancestry." Kethvar stared at the display. "What does this mean?" "It means that thousands of years ago both our species were part of the same spacefaring civilization. We are literally distant cousins who have forgotten our shared heritage and are now killing each other over lies." The implications hit Lisa like a physical blow. If this information became public, it would destroy the racial superiority arguments that both sides used to justify the war, Susan finished, "which is exactly why I was silenced and my research classified." Amy Carter brought up another display showing communication intercepts and financial records. "We have been tracking the money trail. The same investment groups are funding weapons, research on both sides. They buy low during peacetime and sell high during conflicts." Morrison was putting the pieces together. "So they arranged for the war to start. They are profiting from it continuing, and they are making sure it never ends decisively." "Exactly. But we think we have found a way to expose them." Amy looked directly at Lisa and Kethvar. Your story is the key. A human doctor who saved an enemy warrior, and a Zephyrian who chose to fight alongside humans to protect the person who showed him mercy. It is the kind of powerful narrative that can break through propaganda. Vexthul stepped forward. I have been composing songs about your actions that are spreading through the Zephyrian military networks. Many warriors are beginning to question why they fight when honor can be found in healing rather than killing. And on the human side, word is spreading about Captain Morrison's report and the inconsistencies that led to this investigation, Amy added. People are starting to ask questions. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they were suggesting. What exactly are you asking us to do? Susan Hayes answered. Help us broadcast the truth to both sides simultaneously. Show them the genetic evidence, the financial records, and most importantly, show them that cooperation between our species is possible. It will be dangerous, Amy warned. The people profiting from this war will not give up easily. Once we reveal what we know, we will all be targets. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment, considering everything they had learned. Finally, he spoke. On Zephyr Prime there is an old saying. The warrior who fights for truth needs no other weapon. I have seen too much death based on lies. I will help you. Morrison nodded grimly. I swore an oath to protect the Federation from all enemies. If our own leaders are the enemy, then that oath still stands. Lisa thought about all the wounded soldiers she had treated, human and now Zephyrian, all the lives lost to a war that should never have started. Tell us what we need to do. Amy Carter smiled for the first time since they had arrived. We are going to need to get very close to the command structures of both military forces. Close, enough to hack into their communication networks and broadcast simultaneously to every ship, every base, every planet on both sides. That sounds impossible, Morrison observed. Vexthul's eyes gleamed with something that might have been excitement. The impossible songs are always the most beautiful. When do we begin? As they began planning what could only be described as the most audacious intelligence operation in galactic history, Lisa realized that their small group of unlikely allies had grown into something much larger. Humans and Zephyrians working together, united by a shared desire for truth and an end to senseless violence. The war had begun with lies and manipulation, but it might end with courage and the simple truth that all sentient beings deserved better than to die for someone else's profit. The question now was whether they could expose that truth before the warmongers realized how close they were to losing everything. The evidence files spread across the holographic display like pieces of a massive puzzle, each document revealing another layer of the conspiracy that had consumed both civilizations. Lisa sat in the command center of Sanctuary Base, her eyes burning from hours of reviewing financial records, battle reports, and intercepted communications. What she was seeing made her physically sick. Amy Carter highlighted another section of data. This is the smoking gun. Financial transfers from Galactic Defense Dynamics, a weapons manufacturer that officially does not exist, to accounts controlled by both General Brooks and War Master Threx Cole. Kethvar studied the Zephyrian side of the records with growing disgust. These payment schedules correspond exactly with major battle campaigns. Every time peace talks were suggested, mysteriously convenient attacks would occur to derail negotiations. Dr. Susan Hayes brought up her genetic analysis alongside the financial data, and here is why they were so desperate to prevent peace. My research proving common ancestry between humans and Zephyrians was completed 8 months before the war began. Both Brooks and Threxcole had access to preliminary findings. Morrison was pacing behind them, his anger barely contained. They knew we were related species and they started a war anyway? That is not just treason, it is genocide. Worse than that, Amy said grimly. Look at these projections. She displayed a series of charts showing population statistics and casualty estimates. At current rates of conflict, both species will be so weakened within a generation that we will be vulnerable to conquest by other galactic powers. Vexthul had been quietly composing on a small musical device, but he looked up at this revelation, You suggest that weakening both our peoples was intentional? The evidence points that way. Galactic Defense Dynamics is a front company, but we have traced its real ownership. It belongs to the Hegemony Syndicate, a consortium of alien races that profit from instability in the sector. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. They are not just profiting from our war, they are using it to destroy us both. Susan brought up a new display showing the genetic markers she had discovered. This is what they feared most. Proof that humans and Zephyrians are not just similar species, but descendants of the same ancient civilization, the Cathera Empire, which vanished from this galaxy over 3,000 years ago. Kethvar leaned forward, studying the genetic patterns. I know this symbol, he said, pointing to a recurring motif in the DNA sequences. It appears in our oldest religious texts, representing the unity of all life. And it appears in human archaeological sites on Earth, Susan added. Both our species have been unconsciously preserving the memory of our shared heritage through art, music, and spiritual beliefs. Morrison stopped pacing and joined them at the display. So the Hegemony Syndicate has been systematically pitting the descendants of the Cathera against each other to prevent us from remembering who we really are. Think about it, Amy said. If humans and Zephyrians rediscovered their common ancestry and formed an alliance, we would represent a formidable power in this galaxy. Our combined technological capabilities, resource bases, and population would threaten the Syndicate's control over this entire sector. Vexthal set down his musical device and spoke with quiet intensity. In the oldest Zephyrian songs, there are references to the Star Singers, beings of great wisdom who traveled between worlds bringing knowledge and peace. I always believed they were mythological. According to this data, they were real, Susan replied. The Cathera Empire was an alliance of dozens of species working together for mutual benefit. Humans and Zephyrians were among their most successful colony populations. Lisa was studying medical records from both sides of the conflict. The biological evidence supports this. Zephyrian and human physiology are compatible enough that I was able to treat Kethvar with standard medical supplies. Our immune systems even work similarly, which explains why the war profiteers needed to act quickly, Amy observed. The longer our species interacted, the more likely someone would notice the similarities and start asking questions. Morrison pulled up communications intercepts from the past year. These are conversations between Brooks and Threxcole, decoded using the encryption keys we captured. Listen to this. A recording played of two voices speaking in different languages, with the translation device rendering their words in standard Federation language. The genetics researcher is getting too close to the truth, came Brooks's voice. Her preliminary findings have been classified, but she is pushing for more resources. Eliminate her if necessary, replied Threxcole. The Syndicate has made it clear that discovery of shared ancestry would jeopardize the entire operation. Understood. I will arrange for her transfer to a combat zone, an unfortunate casualty of war. Susan Hayes went pale. That was 3 days before I was reassigned to the Frontier Research Station that was attacked. I only survived because my transport was delayed by mechanical problems. The weight of the conspiracy was staggering. Lisa realized that countless soldiers, researchers, and civilians had died not for honor or defense of their homes, but to maintain a profitable conflict that served alien interests. Kethvar was examining battle records with increasing fury. This explains the tactical inconsistencies I noticed. We were not fighting to win. We were fighting to maintain exactly the right level of casualties and destruction. Look at these supply records, Amy added. Both sides have been receiving weapons and equipment from the same sources, just relabeled and shipped through different intermediaries. The Syndicate has been arming both sides equally to ensure neither could achieve victory. Morrison brought up strategic analyses from Federation Command. Every time our forces gained an advantage, mysteriously convenient intelligence leaks would allow the Zephyrians to prepare countermeasures, and I am betting the same thing happened in reverse. Confirmed, Vexthal said, reviewing Zephyrian military records. Our greatest victories were always followed by sudden reversals that our war leaders claimed were due to human cunning. but the patterns suggest deliberate sabotage from within. Lisa stood up from the displays, overwhelmed by the scope of the betrayal. How many people know about this? How long has this been going on? Amy consulted her notes. Based on communication patterns and financial flows, we estimate that fewer than 50 individuals on each side are actively involved in the conspiracy. Most military personnel are following orders they believe are legitimate. But the damage they have caused, Susan said quietly, affects millions. Entire planets have been evacuated or destroyed, families torn apart, promising young people from both species dead before they could contribute to the galaxy. Kethver stood and walked to the edge of the cavern, staring out at the stars visible through the observation ports. My brother died in the Battle of Proxima Station. He was a gifted engineer who dreamed of building bridges between worlds. Instead, he died attacking a human supply depot that our leaders claimed was a military target. It was a medical supply depot, Morrison said quietly. I was there. We lost 30 medics and a dozen wounded soldiers who were waiting for evacuation. The two warriors looked at each other across the species divide, united in their grief and anger at the senseless waste of life. Lisa felt a resolve building within her. We have the evidence. We know who is responsible. What do we do now? Amy Carter brought up a tactical display showing fleet positions for both sides. There is a major joint operation planned for next week. Both fleets will be at maximum deployment with full communication networks active. If we can hack into both command systems simultaneously and broadcast our evidence to every ship and base at the same time, we can end this war in a single day. Morrison finished. Vexthul picked up his musical device again. Then let us compose a song that the entire galaxy will hear, a song of truth that will awaken both our peoples to what they have lost and what they might yet become. As they began planning the most audacious intelligence operation in galactic history, Lisa realized that their small group of rebels had uncovered something far more significant than a war profiteering scheme. They had rediscovered the lost heritage of two great civilizations and the possibility that the galaxy might once again know peace. The Federation battleship Relentless hung in space like a metal giant, its weapon systems powered down but ready for the massive joint operation scheduled to begin in 6 hours. From her position in the maintenance shuttle, Lisa could see dozens of other ships arranged in perfect battle formation, their crews preparing for what they believed would be another decisive strike against the Zephyrian Empire. Remember, we have exactly 18 minutes once the communication systems go active, Amy Carter said through the encrypted comm channel. Long enough to upload our data to both fleet networks before security protocols lock us out. Lisa checked her medical kit one more time. The plan required her to pose as an emergency medical consultant, called in to advise on treating Zephyrian prisoners. Her credentials were legitimate, but the authorization codes Amy had provided were definitely not. Kethvar, are you in position? Morrison's voice came through clearly despite the electromagnetic interference from so many ships in close proximity. Affirmative. I am aboard the Zephyrian flagship Vengeance of Stars, disguised as a replacement communications technician. Vexthul's contacts among the crew made this possible, but my time is limited. The Zephyrian warrior had undergone surgical modifications to alter his appearance enough to pass casual inspection. Combined with falsified identity records, it had gotten him aboard his former enemy's command ship. Lisa's shuttle docked with the Relentless without incident. Her fake medical emergency authorization got her immediate escort to the command deck, where Admiral Patricia Stone was coordinating the upcoming battle. Dr. Martinez, thank you for coming on such short notice, Admiral Stone said without looking up from her tactical displays. We have intelligence suggesting the Zephyrians may be using some kind of biological weapon. Your expertise in alien physiology could be crucial. Lisa nodded professionally while scanning the command center. She could see the main communication array just 20 meters away, but it was surrounded by security personnel and technical staff. Getting access would require perfect timing. Admiral, if I could review the medical protocols for handling contaminated prisoners, Lisa said. I want to make sure our people are protected. Meanwhile, aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Kethvar was working quickly to install Amy's hacking device into the ship's communication system. His technical training from his military service was proving invaluable, but he could feel suspicious eyes watching his every move. "You are new to this posting," observed War Singer Drexnil, the ship's senior communications officer. "Your work methods are unfamiliar." "I trained on the outer colonies," Kethvar replied, hoping his modified voice disguise would hold. "Different equipment, different procedures." Captain Morrison was approaching his target from a third direction. His patrol ship had been assigned to perimeter security for the operation, giving him access to the relay stations that would carry communications between the main fleets. If he could plant Amy's devices in the relay network, their broadcast would reach every ship simultaneously. "All stations, this is Fleet Command," came the announcement across all channels. "Operation Crimson Dawn will commence in 15 minutes. All ships prepare for combat deployment." Lisa felt her heart racing as she realized how close they were cutting this. In 15 minutes, hundreds of ships would begin another battle based on lies and manipulation. Unless they could expose the truth first. "Communications array is now active," Amy's voice whispered through their hidden channel. "You have your window. Upload everything now." Lisa moved toward the communication station, but Admiral Stone intercepted her. "Doctor, I need you to review these casualty projections. Based on the intelligence reports, we are expecting heavy losses." "Of course, Admiral," Lisa replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. She glanced at the projections and felt sick. The Federation was planning to sacrifice over 1,000 soldiers in what they believed was a crucial strategic strike. On the Zephyrian flagship, Kethvar had successfully connected Amy's device, but alarms were beginning to sound throughout the ship, not for his infiltration but for the approaching battle. "All warriors to battle stations," War Master Threxcole's voice boomed over the ship's communication system. "Today, we strike a decisive blow against the human invaders." Kethvar's hands trembled as he initiated the upload sequence. He was about to broadcast evidence that would brand his War Master as a traitor, and himself as the instrument of that revelation. Morrison had reached his relay station and was working frantically to install the broadcasting equipment. His military authorization codes were still valid, but he knew that would change the moment their operation was discovered. "Upload at 60%, Amy reported. "Both fleets are receiving the data, but we need more time for full transmission." Lisa realized she needed to create a distraction. She deliberately knocked over a tray of medical instruments, sending metal tools clattering across the command deck. "Sorry, Admiral," she said loudly. "The gravity feels different on these big ships." The noise drew attention away from the communication station, just long enough for the upload to continue. But Lisa could see security personnel beginning to notice unusual activity in their networks. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Kethvar was not so fortunate. War Singer Drexnil had been watching him carefully and suddenly pointed an accusing finger. "This warrior is not who he claims to be," Drexnil announced. "His scent is wrong, his movements are wrong, and he is accessing systems without authorization." Security warriors immediately surrounded Kethvar, but he had anticipated this possibility. Instead of surrendering, he activated his personal communicator and broadcast a message to the entire ship. "I am Kethvar of the 3rd Battle Wing," he announced in clear Zephyrian. "I was left for dead by my own people, saved by a human healer, and have learned that this war is built on lies. War Master Threxcole has been secretly coordinating with human traitors to prolong this conflict for profit." The command deck erupted in confused shouts as warriors demanded explanations and officers tried to restore order. Morrison's upload was nearly complete when his patrol ship's communication officer noticed the unauthorized transmissions. "Captain, we are detecting massive data streams coming from our relay station. Someone is using our network without permission." "Investigate it," Morrison ordered, knowing he was about to be discovered. "And prepare to defend this position if necessary." "Upload at 90%, Amy reported. Just a few more minutes. But Admiral Stone had finally noticed the unusual activity on her command deck. "Security to the communication station immediately," she ordered. "We have a possible sabotage situation." Lisa knew their time was up. She stepped forward and faced the Admiral directly. Admiral Stone, my name is Dr. Lisa Martinez, and I need you to listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you. Dr. Martinez, you are not authorized to be here under false pretenses, Stone replied, her hand moving to her sidearm. The authorization was false, but my credentials are real, Lisa said quickly, and in about 30 seconds, you are going to receive evidence that General Brooks has been secretly coordinating with Zephyrian War Master Threxcol to maintain this war for profit. Stone's expression shifted from anger to confusion. That is impossible. Upload complete, Amy announced, broadcasting to all ships now. Across both fleets, communication screens suddenly displayed the evidence that Amy Carter's team had gathered. Financial records showing payments to military leaders, genetic analyses proving human Zephyrian common ancestry, recorded conversations between Brooks and Threxcol, battle plans designed to create casualties rather than victory. On the Zephyrian flagship, War Master Threxcol's voice could be heard clearly over the communication system, speaking with General Brooks about coordinating the next phase of profitable warfare. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On human ships, officers demanded explanations from their commanders. On Zephyrian vessels, warriors questioned orders that suddenly made no sense. Admiral Stone stared at the evidence displayed on her screens, her face growing pale. This cannot be real. It is real, Lisa said quietly. And in 10 minutes, we're going to send over 1,000 people to die in a battle designed to accomplish nothing except maintaining the profits of alien arms dealers. The communication channels erupted with voices from both fleets as personnel demanded answers, refused orders, and began to realize the scope of the betrayal. Morrison's voice came through clearly on all frequencies. This is Captain Morrison of the Federation Patrol Service. I call upon all personnel, human and Zephyrian, to lay down arms and demand accountability from the leaders who have betrayed us all. Kethvar's voice followed immediately. This is Kethvar, warrior of no nation but truth. I have fought alongside humans and learned that honor exists not in blind obedience, but in protecting the innocent and seeking justice. As the evidence continued to broadcast to both fleets, Lisa realized that their desperate gambit had succeeded. The war machine was grinding to a halt as soldiers and warriors on both sides refused to continue fighting for lies. But she also knew that the real battle was just beginning, as the forces of corruption would not give up their profitable war without a fight. 6 months after the broadcast that stopped a war, Lisa stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching construction crews from both species work together to build the galaxy's first joint research facility. Human engineers collaborated with Zephyrian architects, their different approaches to design creating something more beautiful than either could have achieved alone. The trials had been swift and decisive. General Brooks and War Master Threxcol were both convicted of treason and war profiteering, along with dozens of their co-conspirators. The Hegemony Syndicate had attempted to deny involvement, but Amy Carter's intelligence network had gathered enough evidence to expose their manipulation of both governments. The medical center is almost complete, Kethvar said, joining Lisa at the observation window. His voice no longer required translation, as both species had been working intensively on learning each other's languages. Your design for integrated treatment facilities will serve as a model for all future joint operations. Lisa smiled at her friend, noting how different he looked now compared to the wounded warrior she had found in the desert. Kethvar wore civilian clothes and had been appointed as the first Zephyrian ambassador to the human territories. His warrior tattoos had been supplemented with new markings that designated him as a peacekeeper rather than a soldier. Dr. Susan Hayes believes the genetic research laboratory will be operational next month, Lisa replied. She is excited about the possibility of reconstructing more of our shared Kethera heritage. The discovery of common ancestry had transformed both societies almost overnight. Art, music, and literature from both cultures were being studied for traces of their ancient, shared civilization. Young people from both species were learning about their forgotten history and finding connections that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. Captain Morrison approached them, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the Joint Peacekeeping Force. The Federation Council and the Zephyrian Assembly have both approved the final treaty language. The formal signing ceremony will take place here tomorrow. The Treaty of Kepler Station, named after the desert world where their alliance had first formed, established not just peace between the two species but a formal partnership for exploration and mutual defense. It included provisions for shared technology, cultural exchange, and joint colonization of new worlds. Any word from Vexthul? Lisa asked. The Zephyrian poet-warrior had become something of a celebrity in both cultures, composing songs that celebrated the end of the war and the beginning of cooperation. He is performing tonight at the Cultural Center, Morrison replied. His latest composition tells the story of how a doctor's compassion changed the course of galactic history. Lisa blushed slightly. She still felt uncomfortable with the attention her actions had received. To her, she had simply done what any doctor should do when faced with a wounded patient. The fact that it had led to ending a war seemed almost accidental. Amy Carter joined their group, carrying a data pad filled with reports. As the new director of Joint Intelligence, she was responsible for ensuring that the mistakes that led to the war could never be repeated. The final accounting is complete, she announced. The investigation has uncovered corruption in 17 different government agencies and military commands. But more importantly, we have identified and shut down the entire hegemony syndicate operation in this sector. What about the weapons manufacturers? Morrison asked. Galactic Defense Dynamics has been dissolved, and its assets are being used to fund reconstruction efforts on worlds damaged during the war. Several of the genuine defense contractors are being restructured to focus on peaceful applications of their technology. Kethvar gestured toward the construction outside. It is remarkable how quickly people can change when they learn the truth. 6 months ago, many of these same workers were building weapons to kill each other. Lisa watched a mixed crew of humans and Zephyrians installing a piece of equipment that would monitor deep space for signs of other intelligent civilizations. The galaxy was vast, and both species were eager to explore it together rather than waste resources fighting each other. "Dr. Martinez," came a voice behind them. They turned to see Dr. Susan Hayes approaching with a young woman Lisa did not recognize. "I would like you to meet Kelly Chen, one of our newest researchers," Susan said. "She is specializing in Kythera archaeological linguistics, trying to reconstruct the original language of our shared ancestors." Kelly stepped forward shyly. "Dr. Martinez, I wanted to thank you. My brother was serving on a Federation destroyer that was scheduled to participate in Operation Crimson Dawn. If you had not exposed the conspiracy, he would probably have died in another meaningless battle." Lisa was still getting used to meeting people whose lives had been affected by her actions. Every day brought new reminders of how many soldiers, workers, and civilians had been saved when the war ended. "Your brother's safety is thanks to all of us working together," Lisa replied. "I could never have accomplished anything alone." Vexthul appeared at the entrance to the observation deck, carrying his musical instruments. "Lisa Martinez, Kethvar, Captain Morrison, I bring greetings from the Cultural Center. Tonight's performance is ready, and I have a special request." "What kind of request?" Morrison asked suspiciously. He had learned to be wary of Vexthul's dramatic tendencies. "I would like Lisa Martinez to speak before the performance, to tell the story in her own words of how this all began." Lisa shook her head quickly. "I am not a public speaker. I am much better with patients than with audiences. But that is exactly why your words matter," Kethvar said. "You speak not as a politician or a military leader, but as someone who simply did what was right." Amy Carter consulted her data pad. "The ceremony will be broadcast to both homeworlds and all the colonies. Billions of people will be watching." The thought of addressing such a massive audience terrified Lisa, but she realized that this was part of her responsibility. The peace they had achieved was fragile and needed to be nurtured by people who remembered how easily it could be lost. What I say?" she asked. Vexthul's eyes brightened. "Tell them about the moment you decided to save an enemy rather than follow military protocol. Tell them about learning that your supposed enemies shared your values and dreams. Tell them about the choice between hatred and understanding." Lisa looked out at the construction crews again, watching humans and Zephyrians working side by side to build something new and hopeful. I suppose I could talk about how healing someone teaches you more about them than fighting them ever could. Perfect, Morrison said. The galaxy needs to hear that message. As evening approached and the time for the cultural ceremony drew near, Lisa reflected on how much had changed since that day in the desert when she found a wounded warrior who needed help. She had made a simple choice based on her medical training and personal ethics, never imagining it would reshape the political landscape of two civilizations. But perhaps that was the point. The biggest changes often came not from grand political gestures or military campaigns, but from individual moments when people chose compassion over conflict, understanding over assumption, and healing over harming. That night, as Lisa stood before representatives of both species and told her story, to a galaxy that was learning to see former enemies as lost relatives, she realized that the real victory was not ending the war. It was proving that different peoples could work together when they were given the chance to know each other as individuals, rather than stereotypes. The war was over, but the work of building lasting peace was just beginning. And for the first time in years, both species faced the future with hope rather than fear, united by the knowledge that they were stronger together than they had ever been apart. In the medical center that was nearing completion, Lisa could see the future she wanted. To help create, human and Zephyrian medical students would train together, learning to heal not just bodies but the psychological wounds left by years of conflict. Children from both species would grow up knowing each other as friends rather than enemies. It would not be perfect. There would be setbacks, misunderstandings, and people on both sides who preferred the old ways of suspicion and separation. But the foundation had been laid for something better, built on the simple principle that all sentient beings deserved compassion and understanding. As the ceremony concluded, and the stars emerged over Kepler Station, Lisa knew that the most important chapter of her life was just beginning. She had helped end one war, but more importantly, she had helped prove that a better future was possible when people chose to see the universe through the eyes of hope rather than fear.